Namaskar. Friends, in this discourse, the speaker would like to introduce another tale from one of the most important Upanishads, which has relevance to the present context of our discussion on yoga. And this tale is taken from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the principal Upanishads. This Upanishad explains the nature of the ultimate reality and how it has to be attained. The legend goes like this. There lived a sage by name Yajnavalkya. He was not only a great sage but also a householder. He was more interested in metaphysical debates. He was interested in the pursuit of the ultimate reality. But at the same time, he led a domestic life. He had two wives, Katyayani and Maitreyi. These two wives represent two worlds. Katyayani was more interested in wealth, prosperity, material things and pleasures. So she was not interested in metaphysical debates. She was not interested in knowing or learning the ultimate reality. She did not show any interest in acquiring the knowledge of the self. On the contrary, Maitreyi, the second wife, was not at all interested in material things, pleasures, in the mundane affairs, but was more interested in metaphysical questions. All the time she used to sit with her husband Yajnavalkya and debate with him over such questions, such abstruse, abstract, esoteric questions. She was more interested in learning the nature of self. So she was not drawn towards material things. Yajnavalkya, after attaining the old age, called his two wives and confessed what he had in his mind, that he wanted to renounce the domestic life, retire in the forest, and devote the rest of his life in the pursuit of the ultimate reality. So it said he wanted to distribute the wealth between the two wives. Katyayani was excited. She felt more happy because she was getting the wealth. She was interested in material things, comforts and luxuries and pleasures. So she had happily agreed to the proposal made by Yajnavalkya. But the second wife, Maitreyi, did not show any interest in the wealth. So she had entered into a debate with her husband, and she questioned, "My lord, would this wealth give me the knowledge of immortality, knowledge of the self? Would it take me to that ultimate reality? Would it give me that state of enlightenment?" Then Yajnavalkya said, "No, wealth would not give her such knowledge, such spiritual knowledge, such knowledge of immortality, such knowledge of the self, and the wealth would not take her to that state of ultimate reality." Then Maitreyi answered, "If the wealth that you are going to give me will not make me realize the state of immortality, if that wealth does not give me the knowledge of the self, if that knowledge that does not make me attain that state of ultimate reality, what use is this wealth? I don't want such wealth. I want that knowledge which makes me realize that state of ultimate reality, which gives me permanent happiness." And this Yajnavalkya was so pleased. And then he started giving that knowledge to his second wife, Maitreyi. This is the tale that is found in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. But what is the significance does this tale have for our discourse on yoga? In this tale, there are three personae: Yajnavalkya and his two wives, Katyayani and Maitreyi. As we have just now learnt, Yajnavalkya was not only householder but was also deeply interested in metaphysical questions, in metaphysical knowledge. So, on the one hand, he was leading a domestic life with his two wives. On the other, he was pursuing the knowledge of the self, the ultimate reality. Just because he had a deep pursuit and interest in knowing and learning the knowledge of the ultimate reality, he did not abandon his domestic life. He lived with his two wives, Katyayani and Maitreyi. So what we see in Yajnavalkya, the great sage, two spheres combined. The two spheres here represent one is the material, that is the domestic life. The other one is his interest in spiritual matters. And the great sage had struck a balance between these two while living and leading a normal life. And this is what we need to learn, that we can live in this world, we can lead a normal life, we can live with our wives and children, we can have the domestic life, but then at the same time we need to portion a part of our time to the pursuit of the knowledge of the self. At the same time, we need to direct the inquiry into ourselves. We need to question, who am I? What is the significance of my living in this world? What is the purpose of my existence? What's my relation to the environment, nature? So you need to look at yourself while participating in the worldly affairs. And this is what is known as yoga, striking a balance between the material and the spiritual. And this is what we have seen in the life of this great sage, Yajnavalkya. He led a normal domestic life on the one hand. On the other, he pursued the knowledge of the ultimate reality. And this is what we find in this great sage. And the extension of his personality is represented in his two wives. Katyayani and Maitreyi. Katyayani represents the material and Maitreyi the spiritual. So this is what the symbolic significance of this tale, which has a great relevance to yoga. The philosophy of yoga has been beautifully represented in this tale, in these three characters, in these three great personalities. Just because Katyayani represents the material, the sage did not abandon her. He lived with her. Just because he had shown profound love for his second wife Maitreyi, he was not partial towards Katyayani. He had given his love equally to these two wives. These two wives represent two spheres, the material and the spiritual. This is what we need to learn from this tale. But we are more bogged down in the material pursuits. We are more interested in worldly affairs, but not in otherworldly things. We are more wedded to this material world. Can't we find an hour, 60 minutes out of 24 hours and devote that 60 minutes to the learning of the knowledge of this self? Can't we? This is a question that you have to pose for yourself. Ultimately, our living must not go only in one direction, but it is going in one direction. It needs to be apportioned equally between these two, the material and the spiritual. It's not going to the temple, to the place of worship, blindly following the rituals, repeating the same actions that do not count for what spirituality is. That's not what is being referred to by the speaker. But sit quietly for a few minutes. Look at yourself. Look into yourself. But all the time, our eyes are directed to the external world. Therefore, we face confusion, misery, pain, sorrow. We face insurmountable problems because of our involvement in this external world. We keep on accumulating samskaras. The more we acquire samskaras, the more you become hardened. You need to devote some time in a day and direct that seeing towards you. Look into yourself, and definitely you will see a difference in your living. There will be a profound change in your living. You will achieve that state of equilibrium in mind. And you have to maintain that state of equilibrium in your living between the material and the spiritual. Spiritual here doesn't mean going to a place of worship, repeating it in a ritualistic fashion, but looking into yourself to understand what you are. Find the meaning of your existence. Why we live in this world. Is it to get degrees, academic degrees, expand our knowledge, secure a comfortable job, marry, beget children, build a house, procure all material comforts and luxuries? Is that all what life is? You need to ask yourself, if you are more involved in that, yoga will not happen to you. Yoga means balance. That balance has to be struck in living. That state of equilibrium must be achieved by living, by leading a normal life in this world. You can involve in the world, but at the same time, you need to devote a part of your time, precious time, to the pursuit of this knowledge of the self. Then you are leading a life of yoga. It does not mean going to some institute and learning some asanas and pranayama. That is not called being spiritual. That will improve your health condition. The speaker is not denying that. But we are more worried about the body. Health, no doubt, is important. But at the same time, looking into yourself, understanding the nature and the complexity of yourself, exploring the meaning of your living, your existence in this world also is important. Then yoga happens. So this is what we understand what yoga is. Yoga means achieving balance in our living. What is that balance? That balance has to be struck between these two spheres, the material and spiritual. Spend some time alone in nature, in some solitary place, in solitude. Reflect, contemplate, meditate. And you will see a tremendous change in your living. Your life will be in total harmony. And you are achieving that state of balance in your life, that state of equilibrium. Then your life will be calm, undisturbed. No amount of misery, problems, crisis, or situation would disturb you. You will remain like a palm tree. You see, a palm tree stands steady in the storm. All other trees may fall, may break and fall in the storm, but the palm tree remains steady. It will not break and not fall. You need to acquire that state in your living. When you achieve that state of equilibrium, that balance, striking that balance between these two spheres, the material and the spiritual, then no amount of misery or sorrow will disturb you. And indeed, you will face any amount of challenge, any amount of crisis in your life. So you can lead a normal life. At the same time, you can involve in the pursuit of this knowledge. And that is the significance, the symbolic significance that this tale taken from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad conveys to us. Let us take this story to our heart and lead a life of this great sage Yajnavalkya. The sage is the best example to show the way as to how to live in this world, leading a normal domestic life and at the same time involving ourselves in the pursuit of the knowledge of the self, knowing and learning about your own nature, and that is called yoga. Namaskar.